We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Media outlets and US projects Donald Trump's Republican Party set to control both houses of Congress when he takes office in January. Navin Ramgoolam to be the next Prime Minister of Mauritius. India's PM Modi congratulates Navin Ramgoolam on historic win in elections. Haiti's international airport shuts down amid surge in gang violence. Airlines suspend Haiti flights after plane hit by gunfire. India-Russia to hold 25th Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific, Technical and Cultural Cooperation in New Delhi. And governments at COP29 talks approve new UN standards for international carbon markets, a key step toward allowing nations to trade credits to meet climate targets. And on to the top story this hour. While counting for U.S. House of Representatives still ongoing, many projections claim Trump is going to get majority in the lower house. That means out of total 435 legislators of the House, 218 are certain to go to Republicans. This will be a big boost to the authority of President-designate Donald Trump, who envisages major policy changes in comparison to his former Joe Biden in both domestic and international arena. This will also mean that there will be no shutdown on budget-related provisions, as he will have majority in both Senate and the House of Representatives. This majority will also allow him to move towards on slashing taxes and shrinking the federal government, as Trump has vowed to make a major shift in immigration policies and the deportation of illegal immigrants. The majority in both lower and upper houses of the Capitol Hill will allow his choices to move forward. President-elect Donald Trump's Republican Party will control both houses of Congress when he takes office on January 20th. Decision Desk HQ projected on Monday the new Congress convenes on January 3rd, days before Trump's inauguration at the White House. And meanwhile, Trump is not wasting any time in selecting his team for a second term in the White House. Among his first appointment was Susie Wiles, who was selected as his chief of staff. Now Trump has picked Republican Representative Elise Stefanik the job as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Stefanik, a Republican congresswoman from New York's 21st district, was elected last week to her sixth term in the office. She will inherit a role Nikki Haley held for 2 years in the first Trump administration. And former New York Representative Lee Zeldin will be leading the Environmental Protection Agency. Republican former Congressman Zeldin has frequently voted against legislation on green issues. Trump is likely to reverse many rules administered by the EPA on the burning of fossil fuels, including one curbing carbon emissions from power plants and another slashing such emissions from vehicles. Trump has said he plans to begin residing EPA and Transportation Department vehicle pollution rules on his first day in office, and is considering paring back or eliminating EV tax breaks and other incentives. Trump also plans to rescind California's ability to set its own vehicle emissions rules, as he did in 2019. As a candidate for New York governor in the 2022 election, Zeldin criticized the state's decision to join California's zero-emission vehicle program that vows to end the sale of gasoline-powered only vehicles by 2035. And another major appointment announced is of Mike Waltz, selected to be National Security Advisor. Waltz has served in the National Guard as a colonel. He criticized Chinese activity in the Asia-Pacific and has voiced the need for the United States to be ready for a potential conflict in the region, while slamming the Biden administration for a disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Waltz has publicly praised Trump's foreign policy views. Waltz is also on the Republicans' China Task Force and also sits on the Intelligence, Armed Service and Foreign Affairs committees. He's supported aid to Ukraine in the past but has demanded conditions. And two-time Mauritius Prime Minister Navin Ramgoolam alliance is set to win the country's parliamentary elections held on Sunday. On Monday, the incumbent Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth conceded defeat in the parliamentary elections and said that his political alliance was headed for a major loss in the polls. Final results are yet to be officially released, but opposition leader Navin Ramgoolam appeared set to take over as Prime Minister for the third time, heading the Alliance of Change coalition. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated Navin Ramgoolam on his electoral victory in Mauritius. In a social media post, PM Modi wished Ramgoolam success and said that he's looking forward to working with him to further strengthen the unique partnership between the two nations. And businessman Alex Didier Fils-Aime has been sworn in as Haiti's new Prime Minister during a ceremony in Port-au-Prince, promising to restore security in the crisis-racked country. Haiti's Transitional Presidential Council appointed entrepreneur and former Senate candidate Alex Didier Fils-Aime as Haiti's new Prime Minister on Monday. The council named Didier to replace Prime Minister Gary Connell, who was appointed in late May. After a ceremony in Port-au-Prince, Didier said transparency and good governance will be a priority for his government and pledged that inclusive, transparent and democratic elections will be held in the country.
Bonne gouvernance.
Transparency and good governance in the management of public affairs will be a priority for my government. We will work towards social cohesion, a necessary condition for the restoration of the state and the holding of inclusive, transparent and democratic elections. Only this will grant the state legitimate and constitutional authority.
Meanwhile, Haiti's international airport was shut down temporarily on Monday after gangs opened fire at a Spirit Airlines flight landing in Port-au-Prince. The latest violence came as the new Prime Minister was sworn in. The flight headed from Fort Lauderdale to Port-au-Prince was hit multiple times by gunfire, striking a flight attendant who suffered minor injuries. The flight was diverted and landed in the Dominican Republic. In other parts of Haiti's capital, firefights between gangs and police broke out. In other upper-class areas, gangs set fire to homes. Schools closed as panic spread in a number of areas. An Ecuadorian Vice President, Veronica Abbott, called her temporary suspension until April an attack on the rule of law. Labour Ministry suspended Abbott last week, just 3 months before next year's elections, in which Noboa will seek another term. On a video posted to social media, Abbott said the suspension was an attempt to prevent her from assuming power once Noboa left his duties to start his campaign. Noboa on Monday named Planning Minister Sariha Moya to fill in for Abbott. Abbott was accused of committing a serious disciplinary offence by not complying with an order to travel to Turkey due to security concerns during the conflict in Gaza. And moving on, governments at the COP29 talks approved on Monday new UN standards for international carbon markets in a key step forward towards allowing countries to trade credits to meet their climate targets. On the opening day of the UN climate talks in Azerbaijan, nearly 200 nations agreed a number of crucial ground rules for setting a market in motion, breaking a years-long deadlock over contentious carbon markets. However, other key aspects of the overall framework still need to be negotiated, including creation of a robust market for high-quality credits. The International Emissions Trading Association, a business group that backs global carbon markets, has said total trading in the UN-backed market could by 2030 generate $50 billion a year and cut 5 billion metric tons of carbon output annually. Well, Monday's deal could allow a UN-backed global carbon market to start up as soon as next year. The benchmarks adopted in Baku will allow for the development of rules, including calculating how many credits a given project can receive. Let us now tell you what is carbon credit and how does it work. Well, carbon credits were devised as a mechanism to reduce greenhouse gas or GHG emissions by creating a market in which companies can trade in emissions permits. Companies receive a set number of carbon credits under the system that decline over time. They can sell any access to other companies. Also, carbon credits create a monetary incentive for companies to reduce their carbon emissions. Those that can't easily reduce emissions can still operate, but at a higher financial cost. One credit allows the emission of 1 ton of carbon dioxide or the equivalent of other greenhouse gases. Proponents of the carbon credit system say that it leads to measurable, verifiable emissions reduction, with the ultimate goal of reducing the emission of GHGs into the atmosphere. Examples of projects could include cultivation of CO2 absorbing mangroves or distribution of clean stoves to replace polluting methods of cooking in poor rural communities. And thousands of people sought shelter. Ports were shut down and landslides blocked mountain roads in the Philippines on Monday. As the nation was struck by a fourth cyclone in less than a month, strong winds and heavy rain toppled trees and flooded roads as Typhoon Toraji made landfall in the province of Aurora on Monday morning. No casualties have been reported so far after the typhoon plowed through the mountainous interiors. As per local authorities, at least 8,000 people have been evacuated from coastal areas and landslide-prone areas in the provinces of Aurora, Isabela, Ifugua and Mountain Province. Well, also, two powerful earthquakes rocked southern Cuba in quick succession on Sunday, just days after the island was struck by a hurricane that knocked out power nationwide. The quakes left many residents running into the streets and badly shaken so soon after the passage of Hurricane Rafael, a Category 3 storm, which struck the island last Wednesday. The U.S. Geological Survey measured the second most powerful tremor at a magnitude of 6.8, which came just an hour after a first tremor of magnitude 5.9. The quakes are the latest events in a cyclone of emergencies for the island following two hurricanes and two major blackouts in the last 3 weeks. Well, the first measurable rainfall over New Jersey since September raised hopes on Monday of snuffing out a rash of wildfires that has plagued the state, while stronger winds brought concern that a California blaze that had already destroyed dozens of structures could start expanding again. However, the rainfall did little to slow the wildfire as strong winds after the rain further fueled the fire. Wildfire outbreaks are a relatively common occurrence in California, but the East Coast blazes are unusual. The largest of them has torched about 5,000 acres in a forested area straddling the New York-New Jersey border. Brian Gallagher, a forest ranger with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, warned that the fire will get larger.
A little larger. Some of the things we do when we fight these fires is we fight fire with fire. We'll pick a trail that we can hold, set some backfire. So some of the fire will grow because of some of the efforts that we do out in the field. And some will grow because of the way the wind is pushing the fire.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news across the globe. To save photographs of cherished family members, a team of experts from the University of Valencia have started to work on pictures damaged in the floods. The university has started to collect frames and pictures from people in flooded areas in an effort to safeguard the photographic heritage of local communities, an initiative called Save the Pictures. The team's main priority is to return the restored pictures to their owners. The Vatican launched new artificial intelligence-enabled services for St. Peter's Basilica on Monday, allowing virtual access to its Renaissance-era architectural treasures for all and enhanced tours for the visitors. The new experiences were unveiled in time for the Catholic Church's Jubilee celebrations in 2025. Pope Francis said that AI must only be used in an ethical way to benefit humanity. Thousands of Germans kicked off the carnival season in the stronghold of Cologne on Monday at precisely 11:11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month. The traditional countdown in Hugh Market Square, in which onlookers dressed in colorful costumes participate in the start of the fifth season, accompanied by chants of Kul Alaf, meaning Cologne rules. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. India calls for urgent UN Security Council reform, stresses need for representation and change. Vistara Airlines' last flight landed in Delhi ahead of merger with Air India. And in sports, Grandmaster Arvind Chidambaram wins the Chennai Grandmasters 2024 chess event. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar and Russia's first Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov will co-chair the 25th session of the India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific, Technological and Cultural Cooperation in New Delhi. The Intergovernmental Commission serves as the highest level forum for bilateral economic collaboration between the two countries, covering a broad range of areas from trade to cultural exchange. Russian First Deputy PM will also hold various bilateral meetings during his visit to India. And the first Deputy Prime Minister of the Russian Federation, Denis Manturov, called on India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday. Both the leaders exchanged views on enhancing cooperation in various areas, including trade and economic ties, energy, connectivity, among others. PM Modi welcomed the sustained and joint efforts being made by the teams in both sides for the implementation of the decision taken during his recent visit and meetings with President Putin to further strengthen India-Russia special and privileged strategic partnership. PM Modi extended his warm greetings to President Putin and said he looked forward to continued exchanges with him. And India has called for urgent reforms to the United Nations Security Council, noting that despite decades of discussion, there have been no significant changes since 1965. India's permanent representative to the UN, Parvathineni Harish, on Monday said that in spite of several decades of collective reiteration of reforms, it is disheartening that no results were seen in this regard since 1965, when the Council was last expanded in the non-permanent category alone. He was addressing the plenary meeting of the General Assembly in New York. Harish pointed to three key factors hindering progress, which includes the ineffective intergovernmental negotiation process, the insistence on consensus by some countries, and the lack of representation for the Global South. He pointed to the example of the G20, where India's presidency last year welcomed the African Union as a member, demonstrating that with political will, change is possible.
Tasked with the responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security, the Security Council has too often found itself paralyzed by the geopolitical realities of today, which have evolved far beyond the realm of that of 1945. In today's interconnected world, Mr. President, a more equitable council is very essential. We cannot go on with the relics of the past for the demands of the future. India has consistently championed a cooperative, inclusive, and consultative approach to international relations. We firmly believe that the calls for reform multilateralism, with Security Council reforms at its core, is supported by the overwhelming majority of the membership.
While moving on in Najafgarh, just outside New Delhi, an agri-voltaic farm blend agriculture with solar energy. This innovative approach supports India's food security and energy goals for a sustainable, greener future. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya with this report.
Today we take you to the Agri-voltaic farm in Najafgarh just outside New Delhi, a shining example of how India is harmonizing agriculture with solar energy. Managed by the India Agri-voltaic Alliance, this farm showcases a groundbreaking approach. Agri-voltaics allows us to use land for both growing crops and generating solar power simultaneously.
We are doing double utilization of the land, in which we are gaining the sun power with respect to the solar panels, and we are doing cropping underneath of it. We made these two type of the prototype over here in the outskirts of Delhi. The purpose to develop the prototype is to demonstrate to all over India that we are able to do this type of the cropping, and nowadays the ministry is also behind it because they want to increase the farmer income. Over here we had multiplied the farmer income by 6 times.
Here, solar panels are elevated, creating space for crops like cabbage to flourish beneath them. The design features walkways for easy maintenance and scientific software that stimulates light and shade to optimize crop yield.
We have a land of 4 acres each on both the plants, and we have employed around, say, 25 people in this 8 acres of land. These people, they work here as farmers, as taking care of the cattle and cleaning the panels.
Balancing food security and energy access is crucial. By 2030, India will need approximately 311 million tons of food grains, while aiming for extensive solar and wind energy installation to achieve net zero by 2070. As India embraces agri-voltaics, it's vital to chart a sustainable path forward, ensuring that our future remains green. With camera-person Gaurav Giri, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for DD India from Najafgarh, Delhi.
And moving on, Vistara, a joint venture between Tata Group and Singapore Airlines, will fully merge with Air India on Tuesday, marking a transition into a single consolidated service under the Air India banner. Earlier, Vistara's last flight from East India's Odisha took off for Delhi on Monday night, marking the end of the airline's operations from the state ahead of its merger with Air India. The flight UK 782 departed from Odisha's Biju Patnaik International Airport and landed at Delhi's Indira Gandhi International Airport. This flight was one of the final departures before the full merger of Vistara with Air India. While you're watching DD India News Art, time now for some sports news. Grandmaster Aravind Chidambaram has won the Chennai Grandmasters 2024 chess event after beating Armenian-American Levon Aronanian. The 25-year-old beat Aronanian 2-0 in the tiebreaker to win the Masters section of the tournament. Earlier, Aravind Chidambaram ended India's top-ranked player Arjun Erigaisi's undefeated streak in the 6th round after having started off the competition with 5 draws. Erigaisi has finished 3rd in the competition. Aravind Chidambaram also beat Param Meghasudlu in the final round. And the nominations for the 67th Grammy Awards were announced on Friday, marking a significant moment in the music industry. India is making its presence felt this year with multiple nominations. Diptanshu Kashyap brings us more on this.
From the Beatles' first Grammy nomination in 28 years to Beyoncé, Kendrick Lamar and Taylor Swift leading the charge for next year's biggest awards, the nominations for the 67th Annual Grammy Awards have been unveiled. With a host of surprises and shocks, music lovers worldwide are in for an exciting race. India has also made its mark with multiple artists earning nominations featuring both familiar names and fresh faces. Indian music maestro Ricky Cage has earned a nomination for his album Break of Dawn in the Best New Age Ambient or Chant Album category. Meanwhile, British singer-songwriter Charlie, of Indian descent, has garnered 7 nominations across various categories, her first ever as a solo artist. Sister duo Nora Jones and Anushka Shankar, daughter of the legendary sitar virtuoso Pandit Ravi Shankar, each received nominations for their respective albums Visions and Chapter 2nd, How Dark It Is Before Dawn. Anushka Shankar also received an additional nomination for her collaboration with British artist Jacob Collier on the song Rock Somewhere that has been nominated in the Best Global Music Performance category. This category also includes Indian origin artist Radhika Vikaria's album Warriors of Light and entrepreneur artist Chandrika Tandon's album Triveni. The ceremony is set to take place on the 2nd of February next year, with India hoping to achieve even greater recognition. With Sujata Lochap, Diptanshu Kashyap's report for DD India.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. Well, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.